wind. If you're not feeling good and you lose the wheel with the pace they're going at the front, well in excess of 60 k's an hour, 70 k's an hour probably down here, it is game over. And 54 seconds as Asgreen continues to pile on the pressure at the front. And it was actually Caden Groves who isn't too far away as well. He shut down one of the gaps. And Groves, a more versatile rider than you think. We saw that. We've already talked about the final stage of the Vuelta, but earlier in the year I had the privilege of commentating on another one of his wins in the Vuelta Limburg. An awful day in the Netherlands, in the region that hosts the Amstel Gold. And it was split to bits over many minutes here, and there was just two of them left, and Caden Groves won it. It gave me an insight. This man isn't just a sprinter, but what we're seeing over the last couple of years, even the fastest men in the peloton, who do class as sprinters, are more versatile than ever. They have to be in this modern era, don't they?
I was going to say, are there any pure sprinters left as such? It seems kind of old school, old breed, the likes of a Gripe or a Kittel. Perhaps those just out and out pure sprinters. And the way the bike races are raced now, you just simply can't be that. You have to be versatile. You have to be able to get over these small climbs, because we know how aggressive the racing is from the off. The entire 188 kilometres today will have been raced. There's no kind of easy days now on the pro calendar. It always quite funny, that first race of the year, no matter where it is, whether it's down in Australia or one of those races in Mallorca, they're racing from the off at that very first day of racing. Just not that long ago, there would have been almost training races on the calendar, and the last kind of 20-30 kilometres would have been raced full gas, that kind of situation. But right now, no easy days, no easy races, and so it means the kind of rider that we're looking at, your Groveses, your Philipsens, they're sprinters, but they can do a hell of a lot more, as we saw kind of Philipsen at Paris-Roubaix, etc, etc. So yeah, makes for a very interesting set of races, because the sprinters can do a lot more than just sprint, like you said.
Exactly. Happy to get stuck in the mix, and we are seeing that more and more often, and it is making for exciting, unpredictable racing. It really is. There's a Lotto Destiny. Oh, that's the unmistakable figure of Yves Lampaert is now going. So they want to do this, don't they? I think it's Van Tricht actually who's going clear now, opening up a little bit of a gap, but straight away in the mix. Jumbo-Visma on the wheels there. Also Intermarché making sure that Soudal Quickstep don't get their way, but a little bit of a gap has opened up, forcing several riders to try and shut down the gap. It looks like the rider on the back of this group for Jumbo-Visma is Eduardo Affini. And Affini can, there he is, just moving through on the inside. There's a big powerhouse rider there on this sort of road. 35 seconds now. So if this pace continues, this relentless tempo continues, it won't be very long in before the breakaway gets caught. Just look at this line out. If you're not on a good day, it can be hellish to try and hold the wheels at the back here.
It really can. If you've had a bit of a tough time up over the top of that climb and then in the crosswind, and then all you're looking for, you want it to slow down, please slow down. Who's on the front? Who's still driving this at 65, 70 kilometres an hour? And they'll have the answer right there. Affini really lining things out, and it's just one long line all the way down to the back. You've got to feel sorry for those guys, kind of, yeah, yo-yoing on and off the back at this point, with still over 50 kilometres of racing, as we're heading back now down towards the finish line. The finish line will come at 48 kilometres to go once again, but yeah, super fast last couple of hours of racing coming up.
After a brief period of relative calm, with the break of 6 riders holding the bunch at 1:30, things have really opened up, and they've opened up early. Kasper Asgreen going on the offensive just over the top of the Côte de Roy, and that has provided a real catalyst for some aggressive racing. The momentum of that aggressive racing has seen the lead for our 6 riders out in front tumble to just 25 seconds, yet they continue to roll through. Bevort there rolling through, and again another attack from Soudal Quickstep now. Again, we definitely know what they want to do in this race. They do not want it to come down to a group sprint, that is for sure. But Jumbo-Visma attentive, back on it, shutting down these gaps, Fair play. Also in the mix as well, the Uno X development team. They've got a man up in front, so they're making sure that they're constantly represented and not too far away, the blue and red of Lotto Destiny. But interestingly, they're not riding with any of these, although Arnaud Delis is the sort of rider that would happily get involved in the mix. So it's Fred Frieson now moving through to the front.
Yeah, it looks like probably Lotto Destiny just want to take a little bit of control of this one. I'm sure that wasn't an attack from Frieson. He just wants to go to the fore and just set a decent pace and just try and calm things down ever so slightly.
Yeah, just get a little bit of control in this race. He's eased up, exactly as you said. Just behind him, Dries de Bont of Alpecin de Koenig. A little bit of calm has resumed again. About 7 Ks before we get through to the finish line again, as we continue to lose elevation on the far side of the circuit, but they've lapped very quickly. Constant washing machine effect. They will soon be in sight, in fact. 17 seconds is the lead. Continue to relay through. Very well organised group of riders here. Cyrus Monk just at the back. Another attack now from the narrow silhouette of the Danish rider Kasper Asgreen. He is a man who Brian Holm once described as a human motorbike. So dangerous away on his own. Former TT champion of Denmark, remember. Opened up another little gap straight over the top. It's a bingo WB.
Interesting move there.
Yeah.
Just 2 riders behind from Intermarché kind of sat up and let that group go, knowing that they had a teammate in that front split. So interesting. Perhaps they're not 100% confident in a bunch kick. They're happy for perhaps a small group with one of their many kind of fast finishers to get away. But looking at Soudal Quickstep, the main protagonists here, they've got Asgreen, Cavagna, Tim de Klerk, Lampart, Pedersen, Seneschal and Van Trick. So you probably earmark perhaps a Lampart, a Pedersen, even Casper Pedersen, or a Florian Seneschal being very fast finishers, but not that big bunch kick kind of riders.
Exactly.
So very confident from probably a group of 20, 30 guys, but perhaps not confident from an entire bunch sprint.
I think I agree. I think it would be, for me, I think it would be between Casper Pedersen and a Florian Seneschal from the lineup they've got here. But as you say, they aren't quite the same sort of, haven't got the same sort of sprint as some of the runs that we've already described, the Ackermans, Delis, the Caden Groves and the Christophe Laporte. So that's why we're seeing them constantly on the offensive and trying to open up the race early as well. The later you leave it, the less chances you have. So they've been pretty disruptive right now. It's great to see, and it has provided an opportunity. Started off the racing. A lot of other teams now getting in the mix. Big move on the right-hand side, weaving all over the road here. Oliveira now on the outside, having a little look round, and there's a big move straight over the top. So Intermarché again, with Grimay not maybe being on great form, and Mike Turnison, he can sprint pretty well, as we know. I think very much like Soudal Quickstep, they'd rather take their chances from a small breakaway, and it's again plain to see. They've got in pretty much every single one of these moves, and now they've managed to punt somebody up. This little drag before we get that long drop down into the finish line.
There's a perfect launch pad here for one of these attacks, but going solo probably wasn't what he had in mind. I'm sure he would want a little bit of help, maybe 3-4 riders to come with him to make this kind of a little bit more of a stronger, a little bit more kind of chance of staying away. It's Hugo Page, who's fast finisher himself, but is that him sitting up? Yeah, he's getting the call through. No point kind of trying to get away on your own with still over 50 kilometres of racing to go. I'm sure he was looking to prize a small group clear like we'd seen in the past kind of 10-15 kilometres of attacking racing, but yeah, doesn't want to forge a lonely furrow.
Well, he's been on the radio. It seemed after that little bit of a hesitation, it appears to be just looking at his body language, the way the shoulders are rocking there ever so slightly. It's suggesting that he's putting a fair bit of force through the bike, but almost was asking, should I continue with this one? Do I need to go? The last thing you want to be is just out on your own. But with a rider dangling in front, all you need is 1 or 2 riders in 1s and 2s, as we classically see, getting across and then a move ultimately moving. And he's committed to this one now. On the tops, on the hoods, just lowers his body a little bit. creating that smaller frontal area as we head towards the finish line. So the breakaway now caught, and the solo rider out in front is Hugo Page, the Frenchman riding for Intermarché Circus. They had a man in the group, the front earlier on, Sven-Erik Bistrom. But after several attacks, predominantly by Soudal Quickstep, the race has opened up again. And with 52.3 k's to go, this man is solo. But I can tell you what, I think he would have preferred to have at least a couple of riders with him in.
Yeah, we can see why he hesitated. You never want to go solo with this far to the finish line. It would take, kind of a very strange situation to allow a solo rider to go all the way to the line from over 50 kilometres and out. But obviously got on the radio, asked the question, and the DS obviously told him to continue with this one. I think he's going to ask the question once again. Get on that radio. Are you sure about this? And
yeah, are you sure?
But the positive from this is it's almost like a anticipation of a later move. So he's already up the road. He's already got a small gap. So he doesn't have to go with the next attack. The next attack will come up to him as such. So not a completely pointless move, but yeah, he's got his work cut out for sure.
Not at all. It was just at the point when there was a little bit of a lull in the racing, and he went. Racing seems to move. It's so unpredictable. It goes in phases, doesn't it? There's a lot of activity. But all of that initial activity started off by Kasper Asgreen as would slash the lead to the group in front, to the extent they ultimately got mopped up far earlier, I think, than we thought they would. And now he's gone, and it was just at the moment that everybody hesitated, looked around and thought, actually, let's take a little bit of a breather. But we're now going to drop down, heading back in to Marche in Famenne. And this is where the pace really picks up. We funnel through that a double roundabout right into the town, and then back out the other side and back up the drag. And next time through the finishing line, they will see 2 laps to go. 2 more circuits of this 24k finishing circuit. Briefly in behind the motorbike there. Ooh, looks like he hit a little bit of a bump there. Drops in front of the moto. Great to see a rider in full flight. He is absolutely motoring down here, isn't he? Let's see how he takes this first roundabout. Not on the brakes at all. Carry full speed through that one. And it's interestingly his teammates on the front here. That is something quite interesting. Not necessarily what I expected. Again, clearly for positioning. But you'd have thought they'd have left it to another team to drive through that roundabout. This is very intriguing.
Definitely. We said a lot of teams have options. Perhaps we didn't think about this option of chasing down your teammate. But we do get a good look now of that narrow section coming down towards the finishing straight.
Coming in through Marche and Famenne. This is the narrow little precinct that we've gone through. Greasy last year, even a few little cobblestones, but perfect conditions today. And Hugo Page with a 12-second advantage, away for the best part of 3 or 4 Ks now. And this is that right turn. Again, a little bit of late crossing by some rather over-eager spectators there, but this is the right turn, carrying a lot of pace into that corner. Oof. Took the apex of that corner, nearly took a spectator out, and there is a rider's eye view of this long finishing straight, which kicks up. Page in the lead. I'm wondering if his teammates now have throttled it back a little bit, because that was quite unusual. The way they were careering into that corner full tilt, it doesn't make for good viewing when you've got a man on the front riding as hard as this. That doesn't make for great TV sometimes from a team perspective, but there we go.
I think the only thing we perhaps could say is a critical point, that pinch point, so better to be safe at the front, and then perhaps even on that narrowing section they were able to slow the race down ever so slightly. As we see now, them all coming to the front and spreading across the front of the bunch, doing exactly that, just try and slow things down ever so slightly. But I'm still sure he'd want some company out front. And just after the finish line, there are a few little ramps which would be an opportunity for a counter-attack to go across to Page. So interesting, keep an eye on things as he makes his way up to the finish line once again.
Here we go to the applause of a pretty big crowd that's assembled here now. 2 laps to go for our sole leader. saying 13 seconds. Let's get the clock on this one. Let's get an accurate reading of the gap for this man as he goes clear. 22-year-old Frenchman from Chartres. Signed all the way through to 2025. Great ride earlier this year in the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. Second place there. On the stage of the Tour de Limousin this year, so he's in good form. Is Caden Groves, just in the centre of your screen. So around 14 or 15 seconds, and they've knocked it off just a little bit there. Just rolling through is Alain Rio of Team Arkea Samsic. And it's relatively calm here at the moment. Again, with only one rider out in front, this is fertile ground for other attacks to come. Just wondering what team is going to be interested. I would imagine on these slopes of these little climbs, we might see Soudal Quickstep go on the offensive again.
Yeah, just after the town, it does kick up a number of times, and we wouldn't call it a climb, they're not classified, but they're definitely draggy roads and a perfect opportunity for someone just to go on the attack, put everyone else on the back foot. Though there is a slight headwind still on this section, so until they turn once again, might wait a little while until we see that counter move, but I'm sure someone's eager to get across, as we're seeing this be quite successful, and up to 20 seconds now.
Yep, completely committed now. 20 seconds, as you say, is the gap. Hugo Page, as you say, he is a pretty talented sprinter, and there is some more action from behind, and it's coming from the Uno X team. Also in the mix there, Soudal Quickstep, Lotto as well, and also the first sight of anybody from AG2R Citroën as well. So a little split has been formed. Bingoal latching on to the back of this group. Jumbo-Visma also are represented on this little climb, and that's a nice little gap that's opened up. So lots of teams have different ideas about the way they want or need to win this race. It's not just Soudal Quickstep that want to open up this race. There are other teams in the mix as well, and I think one of them is definitely AG2R Citroën. We've got a good team here with the Narsen brothers. Stan de Wolf as well has been aggressive recently, and they will be a team that definitely wants to try and infiltrate these breakaways, but it has come back together once more.
Soudal Quickstep rider Casper Pedersen going on the attack once again. Interesting to note that the Lotto Destiny rider looked like they were just kind of marking things and not really wanting to work with a small breakaway, so they were up there just marking things. But once again, it's Soudal Quickstep on the front foot going on the attack, as we see Oliveira from UAE trying to jump across now.
Yeah, Oliveira, again, a wonderful rider, good track rider as well. He's punting himself across this gap. So, unsurprisingly, all that activity has narrowed the lead to our solo rider out in front, Hugo Page, who looks around, and he will see the group campaigning Casper Pedersen and Oliveira coming across the gap. There's also a rider there, looks like from the team Coop. There's the crowd eagerly watch to see Page joined by 5 other riders just latching onto the back there, Uno X as well. But this has really opened things up on these little steep climbs. This is going to make some pretty sore legs. 46.4 Ks to go, and this is the remnant. This is what happened earlier on. Unfortunately, Anthony Tergy will take no longer part in this race. A graze to his head there. Thankfully, he's up and walking, but came down in that crash. It looks like they were the only 2 riders to come down in that crash, unfortunately.
Bit of a strange one, because it was on the lower slopes of the climb, and just perhaps just a coming together of wheels, someone perhaps getting up out of the saddle, and yeah, that move where the back wheel moves back slightly, and perhaps someone looking round on that climb and just not paying attention. Just 2 riders going down, relatively low speed, although rather interestingly looking down. This is getting very interesting with Dylan van Baarle from Jumbo-Visma getting involved now. So that's the thing. Dries de Bont there as well. Where it went over the top of that real draggy, tough climb, it just means that you know that everyone who is in the front is very strong. And this is what I said about Hugo Page anticipating the move. He didn't have to go with these strong riders on the climb, and he finds himself in the leading group. Van Baarle coming through to do his turn. Casper Pedersen still there, so some very strong riders coming to the fore now.
Pedersen is like a Duracell bunny. He goes again, straight over the top, immediately countered. It looks like it's Dries de Bont quite often in these conditions. Unzips his jersey. Such an aggressive, tenacious rider. Always fun to watch just on his wheel. Eduardo Affini, who also glances round. Another gap has opened up. Okay, Samsic trying to sew this one back together. Several little fractures here. This is quite a chaotic point in the race, and a part of the race that's very difficult to control in when you've got multiple numbers of riders attacking. It
certainly is. It's very difficult. Just haven't got the numbers from one team at the front to be able to control things. Lotto Destiny can only see kind of one rider from them towards the front of this, and more groups being fired off the front. A lot of UAE represented at the front in those moves. Matteo Trentin making his way across. Oliveira's still in there. And the bunch just catching up now as we head back down onto that main road. We're going to take a turn right, hit this main road, and then we make our way back towards the Côte de Roy once more. They'll hit that with 39.7 kilometres to go. And given the racing has been so hard all the way from the finishing line, it just means that Côte de Roy being 2.3 kilometres at 4.8% average gradient, it's not the hardest climb on the book in the cycling world, but when you've raced hard for a number of kilometres into it, it can completely change things. And as we saw over the top of the climb previously, it drags on, and that crosswind can play a further part in these moves going away. Gamai getting involved now. Caden Groves up there, very attentive as well.
Well, this is riveting stuff, Ian. It really is. This race has exploded into life over the last 20 kilometres or so. Breakaway enjoying that lead of a minute and a half. Asgreen opening things up. And now it's chaos. Lots of teams did not want this to come down to a sprint. That is for sure. And as a result, this is fast and furious stuff. UAE Team Emirates now place a rider on the front to try and get a little bit of control. But again, it's another Dane this time, Casper Asgreen. Oh, no, it's not Asgreen, sorry. Looks like it's Stan van Tricht who's now going as well. Straight away on the wheel. It looks like that's the figure of Edvald Boasson-Hagen latching on to the wheel of the man from Soudal Quickstep. Dries de Bont again going. This is brilliant stuff. These kilometres are ticking by nicely now.
They really are. I mean, Uno X development team doing a really good job. They always seem to be represented at the front. Tim Wellens moving up for UAE as well, covering this one. So, yeah, time and time again, some very, very strong riders getting involved in these moves. It's going to make for a super interesting last lap and a half. And they're rapidly approaching that Côte de Roy once more now.
Yep, they certainly are. Karma's restored briefly on the front. Boasson-Hagen sits in second position. Also a rider from the Bolton Equities Black Spoke team moving up as well. A team that unfortunately are going to be moving down. Big shame for Bolton Equities. They've had a good season so far. I believe there will still be a team, but on a reduced budget, going back down to continental level. But always make a good account of themselves. And in the centre of the screen on the front now, it is the Italian, the vastly experienced Matteo Trentin, former European road champion. Just trying to see it. Have you managed to spot Christophe Laporte? It's difficult to spot in that white jersey. He's certainly laying low right now, Ian.
I spotted him once coming through the narrowing section on the previous lap, looking resplendent in that blue and white top, and he's even got the custom painted bike to go with it for this race. So, yeah, looking really good, although hiding well while these moves have been kicking off.
I did actually see him on the inside. He's riding at about 15th, 20th place, so where he should be as the road continues to rise again on the Côte de Roy. And there's another attack. It is Edvald Boasson-Hagen, a real strong seated effort. Back in his pomp, this is what this man could do very, very well indeed. And they've got to change and adapt now because they've lost Anthony Tergis. He's crashed out of the race. He's one of their big options. They've got Thomas Bonnet, Fabian Duby. Lorenzo Manzan is a good sprinter. But I think they need to get into a move if they've got any chance of winning this one. That's where Edvald Boasson-Hagen is going on the offensive. And another little group has gone clear now.
All the big teams, all the big teams up there represented. Once again, Tim Wellens covering that move. You see riders just beginning to struggle on the back of this one. Some of the riders from the smaller teams getting really good experience riding against some of the biggest names in world cycling right now. Soudal Quickstep once again driving it up this classified climb.
Yep, keeping that pace nice and high, making the chains very tight. And Bob Bosenhagen, after that couple of big efforts, starting to suffer on the wheel here. 41 k's to go. Cofidis also represented. Just look a little bit further down. There is the figure of the European champion. He's gone for black shorts, which is a good option if you ask me. I don't mind white shorts in criteriums, but in road races it should be black shorts. It's the traditionalist part of me, but certainly looking good. Sat on the inside, Oliveira looking around. Wellens just sat on the inside there, and the European champion, the newly minted European champion Christophe Laporte, just sat on the wheel of Tim Wellens as a few riders start to suffer. This is Jonas Rijkaard is being dropped out of the back. Also, Reinder Beuter of Volker Vessel's cycling team also getting dropped. Looks like Rijkaard, the game over for him now. The Belgian try and hold on as long as he can, but the pace that's been set at the front, I don't think he's going to get back by, because this man on the front now, Tim Wellens, definitely trying something. Again, when you look at the way that UAE Team Emirates are trying to ride here as well, I think they might have a couple of options. Ackerman, you would imagine, if it is a sprint, but also to try and get riders up the road, because they have good riders here that can win solo or also from a small group.
For sure, and only the strong coming through now. Oliveira was actually dropped from the wheel of his teammate Tim Wellens. Matteo Trentin, their puncheur, come sprinter, up there as well, just looking round, looking very comfortable, able to kind of really take in the situation, what was happening behind. But as soon as Wellens sits up, more counter-attacks go. Gamay, Trentin following Gamay as well. So the AG2R Citroën rider taking Jumbo-Visma. Human-powered Health up there as well, one of the other teams who unfortunately will be no more come next season. So yeah, a good time to put in a big ride for one of those riders.
Yeah, I think that was Gage Hecht, the American. Looking pretty good, sat there in third wheel. Benjamin Gramay just on the inside, and there's another move that goes straight over the top. This is Matteo Trentin. Meanwhile, the pace a little bit too hot for Eduardo Affini with 40 k's to go. Jumbo-Visma lose this man, but he'll try and go on over the top. He's got that sort of engine. If he keeps them within 10 or 15 seconds, he should get back in contact. But Trentin now goes clear, and it looks like it's Yves Lampart now trying to get across the gap.
Lampart and Dillier know how strong Matteo Trentin is. You can't let this guy take 20, 30 seconds. Especially, I'm sure he's just trying to anticipate the move, trying to take a small group clear, because he'd be confident from a small group come the finish up that drag. Just looking round, one of the most canniest riders out there, knows exactly what he's doing, just trying to prize a small group clear.
That was interesting, the way that Trentin just didn't even bother to drop onto the wheel there. Sylvain Dillier just on the wheel of the rider from Total Energies. Constant looking around here. But as you said before, very impressed by the way that Uno X development team are riding here. Always have got somebody at or near the head of affairs, covering pretty much every single one of these little splinter moves. But that little group is starting to go clear. AG2R Citroën represented us at the back as well. Looks like one of the Bolton Equities riders is slotted in there too. But 39 k's to go. So about a lap and a half still to go. But this pace on the climb has really started to thin things out.
Yeah, I was saying earlier how the climb isn't the hardest climb in the world. We see Laporte there coming across as well. It isn't the hardest climb, but they had raced it really fast, really hard, all the way from the finish line, up those drags, all the way out of town. And then there would have been a lot of people in the red by the time they hit that climb. So it's not necessarily just on paper that climb of 2.3 kilometres, but in fact what has gone before it, and what has even come before in this race, 188 kilometres of racing. I just checked, it was 2,875 metres of climbing within this race. And you look at races on the calendar as well, and Amstel Gold this year was only 3,290, so not far off. So it just goes to show how tough this race is. As we see Laporte come up to the wheel of Lampard now, what a strong duo this is at the head of the race.
This is a very strong duo indeed, and Christophe Laporte knows that he'll have an eager partner in crime. Goes straight by, floats across this gap, and this is, well, there's certainly not panic, but there's a couple of teams thinking, okay, this is a gap, well, a group we cannot let go. Well, Dylan van Baal looks pretty calm. Another big counter-attack on the inside from one of the riders from Team Coop. Immediately latched onto the back wheel into Marché 2, making sure that they're covering as much as they can, because that is a premium group that has gone clear. Well, not really a group, a duo, should I say.
That's Hugo Page once again, so just showing how strong he is today. He was solo earlier on this lap, and now feeling like he's recovered well enough to just go on that counter move, as those two riders look like they're just dangling. No, in fact, they're out of sight. I can't even see them on the screen. They've gone up over that small crest just ahead, and really dangerous move with those two riders.
Needs to be a little bit of organisation behind. Lotto Destiny had two riders at or near the front. Still a long way to go, still 37 kilometres, but we're well inside the final 45 minutes of racing, especially at the speeds that they're doing right now, losing the elevation that they've gained to the top of this climb. Another tight left-hander. Beautiful conditions compared to this race last year. But unfortunately, the man wearing number 1, Axel Zongler of France, running for Cofidis, not too sure if he's got back on, but the way we saw him on the deck didn't look too good at all. But we have two classy campaigners out in front. Christophe Laporte in that brand new European Champions jersey, running for Jumbo-Visma, and with him for company is Yves Lampard of Soudal Quick-Step. Very interesting stuff indeed. Even Caden Groves now drifting to the front, looking for a little bit of assistance. And he's not going to get any from the man on his wheel, that is for sure. And now this is an ideal situation for Soudal Quick-Step. They'll just keep following these moves, as will Jumbo-Visma. Two of the strongest teams in the race now have, well, I've put the other teams on the back foot. They're on the front foot. All they need to do is to try and stifle these moves, because the engine's up in front. Well, there's some firepower, some combination. They know each other very well, and they're absolutely flying down the other side. 13 seconds is their gap in.
The problem the chasers have got right now, they just simply don't have the numbers, and every time they look round, there's someone from Soudal Quick-Step or Jumbo-Visma coming through to slow things down. So right now that gap's only going one way. Need to get a shot of the bunch. See the strength of Laporte just out of that corner, kicking away from Yves Lampard. So just goes to show how strong that newly crowned European champion is right now, kicking out that corner and opening up a very small gap.
Yep, he's so strong. He really is, and it is Intermarché Circus.
Mike Tennyson on the front.
Yep.
Very strong end to the season, and he realises the danger. This is one of those situations you can't hesitate, because that gap will rocket up to 20-30 seconds. But as I said, the trouble he's got, he's going to look round and he sees the big figure of Tim de Klerk marking things, and even if Tim de Klerk gets out of the way, there's a Jumbo-Visma rider in third.
Exactly. Well, Tim de Klerk on the move next year as well. I believe he's moving across to Alpecin-Deceuninck. Interesting move after many years in the service of the team of Patrick Lefevre. But right now, there is no organisation behind it. And because of the pace on the climb, what we can't see, there's no real colour blocking at all. It's very difficult to rally your resources and get things organised. So it's just these singular riders going off the front, making it very hard. Another couple of seconds take it back. And team that have missed this one, though, of course, is the UAE Team Emirates. But there's no real combination at all. That's Tim Vellens looks across. It is indeed Caden Groves on the front, having a bit of a conversation. But no organisation at all here. What are Lotto going to do? Lotto Destiny with Arnaud Delis. Not seen too much of Arnaud Delis floating around in the peloton. And all these little bits of hesitation are just giving an extra bit of distance to our two leaders out in front. And these aren't two nobodies. These are two of the most decorated and respected riders, specialists at this sort of terrain as well. Laporte with a massive engine. Had a superb season, as have Jumbo-Visma. Arguably one of the biggest demonstrations of power I think we've ever seen from a collective unit. And there it is, in full flight, and that brand new custom Surveyor that you were talking about a few moments ago, Ian. And 19 seconds is the lead. So a formidable, potent duo in the lead of this race as we head into the closing stages. This is the 8th edition of the Famenne Ardenne Classic, although only 4 editions have been run due to the COVID pandemic. It's a relatively new race, but a race of real character. 188 kilometres the distance, a big loop of 118 k's, and now we're halfway through the second lap of 24 k's. And the next time through the finish line in the centre of Marche in Famenne, we will take the bell. So, an interesting situation now, Ian. What do you reckon? They've got to get organised as quickly as they can and deploy troops on the front. You don't want to, you have to bring this back. You can't afford even to get a holding pattern with riders as dangerous as that. No,
exactly. And finally we get some colour grouping in the form of 3 Lotto Destiny riders at the front of this one. Frédéric Frisson on the front right now, doing his turn, desperately trying to limit the losses right now, and then with 3 against 2, going all in with over 30 kilometres to go. You'd have thought they would be able to just begin to bring things back ever so slightly on this faster section of the course. But the problem Lotto Destiny have got is if they bring this down to kind of 10, 12 seconds perhaps coming towards that finish line, and those draggy climbs, once again it just opens them up to counter-attacks from the bunch behind. Everyone else recovering right now in the wheels, and they know how important it is to get across to these leading 2 riders. So Lotto Destiny kind of between a rock and a hard place right now. They can't do no right, but just need a little bit of help from perhaps one of the other teams. See Mikhail Berg moving up from UAE. If just few of the other teams sent up 1 rider to help out, and they'd have this situation under a lot more control, because that gap's currently going out further.
It is, and despite the best efforts of a man who's exceptionally powerful, Frédéric Frisson, a good lead-out rider himself. A big motor on board the Belgium. The gap is indeed going out. You'd imagine UE Team Emirates might put somebody on the front there as well, or perhaps they just prefer to attack over the top and try and get a counter-attack going rather than leave it to a bunch sprint. And that's why a lot of the teams are looking to Lotto Destiny to ride. For Arnaud Delis, a man with 9 wins already on the board this year. So let's just see if that rider from, I think he is starting to ride through. So UE team members are going to use Mikkel Bjerg. His first World Tour TT win, didn't he, in the Dauphiné? Superb performance that was. Such a valuable rider. Just moving up the outside as well now. Kasper Asgreen on our left. It's a washing machine effect as we head back towards this long downhill run before the kick up to the line. Well, that is rather splendid. And what a day to see it. It's a very clean roof. Not too sure what exactly it is, but a beautiful decorative moat. 29 seconds now, so nearly at half a minute. But riders like Frisson and Bjerg, if you get those guys working, they should be able to hold this one. But this is a very dangerous move indeed. Laporte and Yves Lampaert, 2 very different styles on a bike. The rangy figure of Laporte, then the more pugnacious, compact figure of the experienced Belgian Yves Lampaert, now 32 years of age. Rolls through to the front. This is looking good at the moment, but still with 30 k's to go. Plenty of opportunities to try and bring this back, but some real horsepower being deployed at the front now, in.
This is a key moment of the race. They've hit that drag. Yep. They turned right onto that main road, and it drags all the way, and Mikkel Berg comes to the front, whether he can make any inroads. But as a result of that increase in the pace, Frédéric Frisson's pulled out the line. Doesn't look like we'll see him back at the front for a good while, if at all. So see how lined out it is behind. It's one of the problems with being almost so strong doing your turn, Mikkel Berg. But he knows that he needs to bring back this as quickly as possible, because they don't have the sheer numbers to kind of ride this down over the course of 30 kilometres. They just need to bring this back and get this race under kind of some sort of controllable situation.
Yep, he's doing a good job here as Mikkel Bjerg. He's taken 7 seconds back. And as you say, such is the force of the pace by Mikkel Bjerg. Frison has dropped away after a long pull on the front. It's how long you can sustain it. It's okay increasing that pace, but quite often you put the other riders behind you've been chasing on the back foot, especially uphill. It's all about trying to keep that pace even, but slightly quicker than the group in front. Sometimes when you really inject a lot of fast pace, nobody can actually come through and the pace dips again. It's about keeping it even and high. Although saying that, you cannot let this lead go out too much more. And there it is. There's the result of that big effort on the front by Frederik Frison. That is another important, crucial resource for Lotto Destiny that's been jettisoned out of the back. And I don't think he's going to get back in contact because this pace is going to, well, stay unrelenting. And that's Arnaud Delis on the wheel, actually. So Delis now on the wheel. He's got no teammates left. Oh, fascinating stuff. Such is the pace of Bjerg that all of the teammates that Lotto of Destiny had near the front have been dropped. That's a Hugo Hofstetter. Another one of the fast riders for Arkea Samsic also being dropped. A real indicator of how furious, how difficult this pace is now in.
It certainly is, and some of those names we had highlighted down as fast finishers being jettisoned out the back of the bunch right now. But Mikkel Bjerg just showing how strong he is. But you make that really good point of when his turn comes to the end, perhaps at the top of this drag, and he pulls over, he's put everyone else in a serious pain locker, and they won't be able to come through at a similar pace and maintain it, if at all. I think a good situation for UAE would be once his turn is done to be able to fire someone over the top of it in a counter-attack to try and jump across, but the gap would have to be a lot lower than that 23 seconds that we're seeing right now. Finally, Oliveira comes up and Tim Wellens is coming up, so perhaps a few more UAE riders adding some firepower to this chase. Can't see any of their kind of designated fast finishers right now with Hodge, Ackermann or Trentin.
No, exactly. I'm just trying to see. It says Tim de Klerk is there, Casper Asgreen. Nobody riding at the front yet from Intermarché. That's Benjamin Grimay a little bit further back. There's Stander Wolf, a few other riders from his team, AG2R Citroën. But yeah, I haven't seen Ackermann all day, to be perfectly honest with it. Doesn't mean he's not there. He's a canny rider, experienced German. But look at that line. There's a lot of riders that are just struggling to hold the wheel up this long drag. But right now, they're just holding the gap at 20 seconds. But UAE Team Emirates putting a lot of resource on the front. It looks like Tim Wellens is just putting Oliveira back in there. So two riders from UAE Team Emirates. Look at the face of Mikkel Bjerg here, completely lining this group out. But interesting that Intermarché aren't assisting with the pace making right now. Lotto Destiny don't have the resource at the sharp end of the